Let me tell you, I've had one of the most intense nights of my life, and I already know this is just the beginning. I feel like I should start off by saying that I think Derek is a lost cause. Before I can explain how I came to that conclusion, I need to explain what happened to myself first. I crawled out of the window and was about to attempt to climb the fence I entered from when the suited man stopped me and pointed over at the other side of the backyard.
Go over the brick wall and await for retrieval,
The woman said, sounding slightly like Siri. I ran to the other end of the yard and hopped the wall, just to see the suited man standing there waiting for me. What the hell? You were just over there, I said, pointing at James's house. Well, now I'm over here, champ. This was unreal. I must have been higher than I thought. Did you just teleport? The man slightly smirked at me. Ran over here, just like you. He said it like it was normal. I didn't even see or hear this guy approach at all.
We can chat later. Get in.
I swung around, startled from the voice that came from behind me. I turned to see the lady sitting there in a black unmarked car that resembled a BMW with the window down. How the hell did you do that? The man answered for her. Simple. We're quick and quiet. Need to be in our line of work. It still didn't explain how a lady in a suit snuck up on me with a car in a ratty alleyway. Dude, I can barely believe quick and quiet for you, let alone her sneaking up on me with a literal car. That's a lot more than just quick and quiet. That's like some superpower ninja shit. The woman spoke up.
They're almost here. Get in.
I obliged and hopped into the back seat. The man was already sitting in the passenger seat with the seatbelt on somehow. I decided to stop questioning the fact that he was too fast for me to register, because it seemed like I was going to have to end up getting used to it. The car sped off, and not long after, I saw a bunch of cop cars fly by towards James's house. I was weirded out by the fact that none of these cops noticed us speeding by. They didn't even look in our direction, as if we were never there to begin with. Alright, who the hell are you people? I said, wanting to get some type of answer. They both simultaneously looked over at me and said,
John and Jane Doe.
The more time I spend with these people, the creepier they get. They knew more than they should. They were faster and quieter than reason. They were identical, pristine suits and sunglasses regardless of the lighting. It felt like they were cheesy secret agent cartoons that hopped straight out of a comic book. Worst of all, they were both paying zero attention to the road, as they were both facing me. But somehow, we never crashed. John and Jane Doe? Seriously? If you two are gonna lie to me, at least be more original, I said, annoyed that they thought I wouldn't notice such a default name like that. Simultaneously, again, they said,
Well, that's the name.
They were still paying zero attention to the road, but the car seemingly drove itself. John Doe tilted his head slightly. Believe it or not, kid, I don't care. I've never been called anything different. Alright, John and Jane Doe. What's going on here? I said to them, needing some type of relief from all this confusing shit. After an extremely awkward pause of silence, Jane spoke up.
There have been some disturbances in this area. We detected extreme amounts of energy bursts around here, and there are a lot of red flags that point to the fact that entry was made into our reality, multiple times.
John Doe started talking next. Your pal James has been meddling with things that should have never been disturbed. After we detected the first entry, we've been keeping this area under tabs. Confirmed entry was logged for tonight. You were affected by the anomaly. So were your friends. We need to gather everyone who made contact, Carter. This is very serious. Do you know who your friends are? And what do you remember from your encounter? I explained to them what happened to my friends and I, and they listened silently. I never mentioned the journal, as they never mentioned it, and I still didn't fully trust them. I heard a hint of intrigue in John's next words. You never asked it a question? No, why? He avoided my question and continued. We need to get to Derek now. Those types of questions aren't meant to be asked. Derek's probably at the hospital. He's in bad shape right now. The next moment we were in front of the hospital. I didn't understand it, but whatever. It seemed like there are going to be a lot of things that are going to make me question reality. We made our way into the lobby, and after John and Jane exchanged a few words with the head nurse, we were given the info to Derek's room. He was located in the psych ward for his condition. We quickly went to the room number and walked in. This is where things turn from confusing to horrifying. "Not good," John said. The first hints of fear I've heard from either one of them. The room was a bloodbath. Instead of Derek, there was a dead doctor lying in a pool of blood, eyes gouged out and the body riddled with slices and stabs from what I assumed was a scalpel. The man's face was stuck in a horrible grimace, alluding to the fact that he was probably still alive when his eyes were removed. There was a message that said, "I see. Can you?" scrawled out in the doctor's blood. I looked over to a chair that was in the middle of the room. The chair had leather restraint straps that were ripped. Jesus! Was Derek really capable of doing this? Jane grabbed my shoulder, snapping me out of my thoughts.
We need to find Derek and contain him before this gets any worse.
We ran out of the hospital to find out Derek had killed another nurse during his escape. Same MO. Gouged out eyes with the same message written in the victim's blood. I told him that Derek was probably on his way back home, and we seemingly teleported over there with the car once again. The front door was already creaked open on our arrival. We slowly made our way into Derek's house, and it seemed normal enough so far. I called out Derek's name a couple times with no answer. I was already preparing myself for the worst as we made our way through the house and checked the rooms. My worries were confirmed when I found Derek's parents in their beds slaughtered. Derek's dad was almost unrecognizable from whatever mutilation Derek inflicted on him. There was blood dripping down the walls on his side of the bed from how extra vicious his demise was. Throat ripped out and heart removed, to my later horror when John and Jane informed me. I was staring at the scene in shock. I looked over to Derek's mom and the damage to her wasn't nearly as bad. It seemed like she bled out from the eye gouging. I started to cry, and my knees buckled and gave in. I was crying at the end of the bed, and for once, John and Jane didn't try and rush me. I took a couple more moments to collect myself, and looked up at the wall on the mother's side. The message was slightly different this time. It said, "One sees, one does not. Can you?" As I was staring at this message, a weak whisper proceeded to scare the living shit out of me.
Carter, is that you, honey?
My tears quickly returned. I walked over to her, grabbed her hand and knelt down. "Yes, ma'am, it's me, Carter. What happened to you?" I said, trying my hardest not to sound like a blubbering child. She squeezed my hand hard and muttered,
Derek did this to us.
"Have you ever wondered if a person with no eyes could cry? If the tear ducts are still intact enough, tears can still flow. But without eyes, the tears just leak back into the eye sockets, unless the head was tilted forward and leaked out that way, or it could come out the nasal cavity. I wish it was as simple as that." She was obviously too weak to move, but shifted her head upwards slightly. She had so much blood pooled up that when she started to cry, the blood-tear mixture spilled over and out of her eye sockets. Waterfalls of blood and tears pouring down her face, eventually covering our hands as it was leaking down her neck and arms.
He wouldn't stop rambling about the truth, and can we see it? My husband tried to reason with him, but that wasn't the reaction Derek was looking for.
She resumed crying again. I tried to ask her where Derek went, but she kept on crying. "We gotta help her. Please, can you guys do anything?" I said, looking over to John and Jane.
I'm sorry, Carter. Her wounds are too severe. It's a miracle that she's made it this long in the first place,
Jane said, sounding like an unemotional nurse.
It's okay, honey. I told him I can see.
Derek's mom said, sounding a little bit out of it. "What do you mean you can see?" "Please, miss, stay awake. I can help you. We can find Derek and..." Derek's mom cut me off.
Carter, I've always loved you like a second son. I'm sorry for the way I acted towards you last night. I forgive you. Take care of Derek for me, would you, sweetie?
I started to break down more. Wait, please. I've lost too much for you to go too. I started to look around for something. Anything to maybe stop the bleeding, but the more I searched, the more I realized I couldn't save her. She died still holding my hand 10 seconds later. After about a minute of silence, John and Jane managed to get me back into the car. John put his hand on my shoulder. Come on, Carter. We need to find Derek before he hurts somebody else. Then we can work on locating Johnny. He was right. We need to get Derek before he does something else, and we need to find Johnny. I think I might know where he is, I said, feeling numb from the grief. When we were all kids, we had a treehouse that we'd all hang out in. It was our little escape from the world and would get us through the most stressful days. Well, at least as stressful as it can get for a kid getting into an argument with our parents, or being overwhelmed with schoolwork. Derek might be at our old treehouse, but we have to hurry. We got back into the car, and when I was about to tell them where to go, we were in front of the treehouse. It didn't even make sense how the car was able to get to the spot in the first place, because it was surrounded by trees and foliage that wouldn't allow a car to even fit. We always had to navigate our way through and couldn't even bring a bike through. Nevertheless, the car was sitting under our treehouse. We made our way up the tree, and had to be extra careful not to slip as the ladder planks that were nailed into the tree were soaked in blood. It looks like I was right about Derek coming here. I found Derek facing away from us, sitting crisscross and muttering to himself. There's a pile of eyes sitting next to him, 10 eyes to be exact. I slowly approached my friend. Derek? Derek's head shot up, but he didn't look at me. Carter! I was wondering when you'd show up. We need to save humanity, man. We are so blind. Now that you're here, we can make the others see the truth together. You sounded so delusional. Derek, what you're doing isn't saving them, man. You're murdering them. You killed your own goddamn parents. Keep talking about how you can see, but you're blind to how wrong this all is. Derek chuckled. Right. Wrong. Life. Death. It's all irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. I'm giving you one more chance, Carter. Follow me and save humanity, or get out of my way and continue to be blind. John and Jane Doe stepped in at this point. No, Derek. We are giving you one chance to surrender and come with us peacefully. We can help you both. I have a message that humanity needs to understand. It's our next step to evolution. It's my mission. If you don't understand that, so be it. Jane stepped up to Derek to subdue him before anything escalated, but it was too late. Derek swung around to reveal an eyeless, bloody version of my friend, with a psychotic smile. He punched Jane in the head and she burst through the treehouse, breaking through the window and flying into the darkness outside. John was already grabbing Derek's outstretched arm when Derek flung his head back and reverse headbutted him. John's nose bursted and black blood started to ooze out, but he showed no sign of pain. In an instant, John was in front of Derek and kneed him in the gut. This caused Derek to fly upwards slightly before he could land. John brought his fists up and put them together, then slammed them onto Derek's back. Derek hit the floor and the floorboards splintered with impact. The treehouse was going to collapse on itself soon if this kept up. Derek growled and swept John's leg, but he caught himself with his hand and came back up. It looked like he did a cartwheel and someone pressed the rewind button. He kicked Derek in the side of the head, and by this point, Jane double front flipped back into the treehouse through the hole that she crashed through earlier and landed on his back. Derek kept on trying to fling himself around, but they were both holding him down. Jane holding one arm and John holding the other. Both of them pressed their knees into his back. John pulled this piece of shiny metal that was the size and shape of a credit card and placed it on Derek's wrist. The moment the metal made contact with Derek's skin, I saw it glow with intricate patterns, and it engulfed his whole hand. Jane then brought his other arm to it, and the glowing metal engulfed that too. Derek tried to pull his arms out of it, but every time he did, the markings would glow and small sparks of red electricity would spurt out and would make him scream in pain. The whole struggle went down in seconds. He eventually stopped trying to break free, and we got him into the car. Derek wouldn't stop freaking out unless we took the eyes with us too. Instead of fight it, we just complied to make it easier. John cleaned up his face, and Jane fixed her suit. And it seemed like they never even got into a reality-defying fight in the first place. I saved the "why do you have black blood" question for another time.
Now that we have Derek, we need to get him into containment while we figure out where your friend Johnny is,
Jane said while pressing on the gas pedal. We approached a strange-looking two-story building that was seemingly in the middle of nowhere. I have no idea how far we traveled, but I guess it doesn't matter. We made our way into the building and it was eerily empty. John and Jane Doe escorted us to an elevator and we started to descend. For a while. Once we were who knows how many floors down, the doors opened to a floor with many identical clear cells. Derek was placed into one, and the metal brace constraining him was removed by some robotic arm and placed into a tray that John grabbed it back from. The arm then placed a jar on the nightstand that was by Derek's new bed. The jar contained the eyes that Derek also needed. They were disinfected and placed into a type of preservation fluid to prevent decay. This seemed to soothe Derek for the time being, and they brought me back up to the surface level to discuss Johnny. John and Jane Doe had me wash up, then sat me down on a couch and gave me some coffee, while they sat on an adjacent couch. John started speaking after a couple long sips of his black coffee. The being you have encountered was brought upon by your pal James, and we are still working on exactly how he did that. You were all exposed to a type of energy that was not meant to be encountered. I cannot explain why the thing mentioned your fate or called you guys by those strange names, but we do know one thing for certain. It took Johnny and James to a different place. We need to know the origin of the being to figure out exactly where. Alright, well how the hell are we supposed to do that? And will something happen to me? Jane looked over towards me.
Simple, Carter. Deduce what you already know. It seems like from what you've told me is that the thing has an infatuation with a black hole. Maybe we should start there. As for you changing, I think you're fine. Derek is like this because of the knowledge he was imbued with.
You know what? That's what I was kind of thinking too. Because all that stupid talk is what sparked this whole fiasco. And yeah, that does make sense.
What stupid talk?
Jane and John said simultaneously. We got stoned and we were talking about the universe. And Derek asked what would happen if we survived a black hole. We stated what we thought about it, and that was that. I don't get how that stupid conversation started all of this, I said, recapping the events in my mind. Jane seemed interested.
Well, go on. What were your theories?
I said we would probably get destroyed. Johnny was passed out, and James said it depends on what's on the other side. They stayed silent for a second before Jane spoke again.
Curiosity can lead to unexpected things. That conversation was the seed of curiosity for James's mind. You are sure this conversation led to the encounter, right?
I'm positive, ma'am.
Then I think I might know where your friend is.
Where would that be? John and Jane Doe both looked at each other and then back at me.
He's on the other side.
I've been thinking a lot about what they have told me. If what they say is true, then Johnny was taken through a goddamn black hole. I have a strong feeling that this first readable page in James's journal might contain a clue regarding the location of it. It's just a feeling that I have, but I can't be sure. There could be countless black holes located in any part of our universe. John, Jane, and I are trying to figure out the location, mainly them though. I'm still not sure if I should hand the page over to them or not. I still want to keep the journal to myself for now. Maybe you people who have read it can help me solve it, and I can give John and Jane a reason to think I'm not useless. I want to help, but I'm not sure if I can fully trust them. I still don't understand their motives. Regardless, wish me luck, and I will update you guys if we find the location or not. Thanks for your support. Carter Lux.